Good evening, Dr. Harrington and feedback and assessment classmates. I'm Sean Found. My final project will cover grading systems. For this presentation, I'll be in the role of a Teaching and Learning Center staff member at LSC, that's Local State College. I'll be providing the grading systems portion of a workshop for new faculty at LSC. Hello, new LSC faculty member. On behalf of the Teaching and Learning Center staff, we now want to not only welcome you to our team, but also to encourage you to know that we're here to support you during your time at LSC. If you please at this time refer to the companion resource PDF and follow along, our goal is to provide you with information that can help you develop best practices. Here's an overview of our agenda for this block of instruction. We'll review the role of grades. We'll discuss how to shift students to a learning focus. We'll provide recommendations for grading systems and extra credit, and we'll equip you with 4 strategies for high achievement in the classroom. What role do grades play in student learning? The simple answer to that question is that grades are one instrument that can help teachers to gauge to what extent student learning has achieved the objectives of the course. Grades send messages between student and teacher. When considering the meaning of grades and grading policies, we tend to focus immediately on the teacher-learner axis only. While we might be drawn initially to this learning transaction, the scope is actually further reaching. Grades are not just a communication between teacher and student, they are a decision-making tool for future professors, employers, admissions committees, and others, so we're told by Svinicki and McKeechee. Teachers also use grades for evaluation to see where a student's at, where they're going. Are they on pace with their learning? Are the grades they are achieving at lower level tasks an indicator of their potential to take on higher level learning in the field? Employers also want grades to tell them that if the graduate will translate into a good employee. Does the knowledge and problem solving learned in the classroom transfer meaningfully to what they will face on the job in the real world? Does it help forecast if the graduate is a good fit for the organization ethically, morally, and socially as well? Students, too, often use grades as a barometer that measures whether they should pursue future work in a particular field or not. Grades and grading play a variety of roles in student learning, and here, as a new teacher at LSC, we want to help equip you to be aware of their many applications. One of the byproducts of the traditional 100-point grading system and scale is that it can cultivate an environment of competition for grades that is so intense that the pursuit of actual true learning can take a back seat or even get lost in the shuffle. So how can we help students shift their focus back to learning as opposed to being purely driven by achieving grades? Well, Shinsky and Tanner researched ways to effect this shift. One major theme that they uncovered was that actively employing descriptive feedback, written and verbal, from the teacher or among peers was more effective than just evaluative feedback, grading. They even found support for either diminishing the amount of grading done by teachers or even abandoning grading altogether in favor of pure descriptive feedback. So, as you form your practice as a new teacher at LSC, you can certainly utilize the traditional grading system. Many of our current faculty still do. You can also shop for alternatives that might actually foster a more learner-centric environment for you. Why is this important? What's at stake here is not just promoting actual learning over grades, although that is vital. Students stand to perform better when they adopt a collaborative versus a competitive approach to learning. Butler and Nissan conducted a study that compared the effects of 2 types of feedback, evaluative versus descriptive, and also no feedback on student performance. What they found is that students that received descriptive feedback as opposed to evaluative feedback in the form of grades perform better on ensuing tests and especially upon problem-solving tasks and assignments. Earlier, we mentioned that grading systems and grading policies have far-flung effects and consequences with numerous stakeholders vying for influence upon and consideration within their development and implementation. This can be confusing. Therefore, our first recommendation is to keep your grading system as simple, comprehensible, and user-friendly as possible With elimination of unnecessary complexity then foremost in our minds, let's talk about some changes we can apply to grading systems that will enable deeper student learning. As a new teacher here at LSC, one thing to consider is the efficacy of traditional points as the sole instrument used for measuring student achievement. Carifio and Carey advise that schools that believe no single factor should dominate when determining a student's overall grade should carefully review the nature of the 100-point scale. And they go on to say that most critics of the traditional scale focus on the nonlinearity of the scale divisions. While the intervals representing most grades are typically 100 points or less, the interval for an F is typically 60 points or more. This nonlinearity of scale not only increases the probability of an assigned grade being an F, but it makes the grading process susceptible to having a few failing grades dominate a much larger number of passing grades. Another recommendation for new teachers at LSC is to at least consider introducing the practice of minimum grading to your systems and your policies. Students can find the deck stacked against them even before the semester begins because of the biases we, as teachers, often unknowingly weave into our grading systems. Again, Carifio and Carey provide a mitigation strategy for us. One way to counter this inherent bias is to bring the size of the interval associated with failing in line with other intervals. Proponents claim that setting a minimum failing grade of 50 accomplishes this balance. Also, mathematically and statistically, a single grade of 0% on an assignment or a test can bury a student in a hole too deep to dig themselves out of. So even if you don't feel comfortable eliminating zeros completely or setting a higher low end of failing grades, you can consider an alternative grading scale that at least distributes letter grades more equitably. Additionally, as an alternative to the zero, Guskey instead recommends conscientious use of the incomplete, which can keep students accountable while not crushing them with a weaponized zero. As you construct your grading system, we have one final recommendation that can help you to guide and inform your policies and practice, and that's to find ways to liberate grading from the economy of reward and punishment. Not only is the incentivizing of grades ineffective in the classroom, the practice has also been shown to fail in the real world of business and commerce. Among critics in the financial sector, Pink has advanced the idea of offering extrinsic incentives like monetary bonuses that those don't increase workforce creativity and productivity. He argues that to truly motivate workers, employers need to tap into and stimulate intrinsic motivation, which is what we should do with our students as teachers as well. Educators are divided, even polarized, on the issue of whether or not to offer extra credit activities. Here's some sample pros and cons for you to look over on this slide on whether you should use extra credit or not. As you formulate your stance on the topic, here are some further themes to consider. Norcross et al. Identified a wide disparity between teacher and student views of extra credit. They found that students by a wide margin viewed extra credit not only positively, but even attached an air of feeling entitled to the opportunity, as if it were a given that teachers should offer it. Conversely, they found the opposite opinion expressed by most faculty members. Although some faculty members did support the idea that extra credit opportunities can motivate students to further explore course material and as a means to spur extra effort. While more research is needed in the field, some studies indicate that extra credit can be positive in some settings. Padilla Walker conducted a study of the effects of daily extra credit quizzes and summarized the results of that study like this. Although not over inflating students' grades, students who did well on extra credit quizzes also performed better on exams above and beyond general measures of achievement. Here at LSC, our recommendation is that if you do choose to utilize extra credit opportunities within your class, ensure that you formulate and follow some guidelines in doing so. Citing an in-depth study by Palladino et al., Schieffer has 7 recommendations that you can use to inform your practice. Number 1, extra credit should be made available to all students in the class, built into the course structure and described in the syllabus. 2, select opportunities that are pedagogically sound and clearly connected to course content. 3, provide several choices. 4. Provide an explanation to students for offering extra credit. 5. Address how much extra credit is appropriate. Their general rule of thumb is that the points available from extra credit should be no more than 5% of the total possible number of points of the course. 6. Examine choices of assignments. And 7. Reflect on the purposes of grading. So as a new teacher at LSC, the Teaching and Learning Center staff are here to help you craft approaches and to hone your skills as an instructor. Before we close, we want to impart a few strategies to assist your students with high-level achievement. The following 4 strategies are gleaned from Sfineke and McKeechee. We'd like to show you how each of these strategies link with a few foundational psychologies of education as expounded by Carifio and Carey, and what this means for you in your classroom. Strategy number 1, develop relatable activities. Achievement motivation theory connotes this with a sense of what the student values. An individual's behavior results from the personal perceptions of the value one attaches to a particular outcome and the individual's subjective expectations of attaining that outcome. That's from Carifio and Carey. We can address this need when we focus on meaningful activities that students can see are related to their own future. This helps them focus on becoming skillful rather than on simply earning a grade. That's from Sfineke and McKeechee. Strategy 2, cultivate an ethos of learning for the sake of learning. Both attribution theory and self-worth theory address how students process the anxiety of potential failure and how maladaptive thinking can arise as an avoidance measure. Attribution theory predicts that student expectations are shaped more by how they perceive their own abilities rather than by past experience where success was earned through hard work. Self-worth theory likewise predicts that students may avoid the perception of low ability through intentional failure. Self-worth theory examines motivation in terms of the conflict between hope for success and fear of failure. Again, Carifio and Carey. Instilling a love of learning in and of itself as its own ends and means alike can be a powerful tool to ease the pressure of attaining high grades. Therefore, we can, in the words of Sfineke and McKeechee, make the learning interesting through the use of variety and novelty. The goal is to distract the students from focusing on grades by making the learning worthwhile in and of itself. Strategy 3, design tough but attainable assignments. The locus of control model predicts that a person's behavior is largely determined by the person's expectancy that certain outcomes are likely to occur. Social learning theory also recognizes the empirical law of effect, namely that individuals are motivated to avoid or attain certain aspects of their environment. That's again from Carifio and Carey. If learning is impossible, students can become demoralized. Therefore, we should strive to make learning challenging but doable. Challenge is a big source of motivation for students, but only if there is hope of success. Again, advice from Sfineke and McKeechee. Finally, strategy number 4, we want to foster a sense of student ownership in their own learning. Bandura stressed the importance of student autonomy when he described the component of self-efficacy. Self-efficacy is defined as the belief in one's own capabilities to effect necessary actions required to attain desired goals. When teachers grant students the sovereignty over the direction and final destination of their learning, it creates an atmosphere where they are no longer even thinking about final grades, let alone feeling stressed or anxious about them. So our final recommendation echoes Sfineke and McKeechee's advice, and that is give learners some choice in what they are going to do. When you're able to choose, you are more likely to work hard towards something in which you have a vested interest. This concludes our recommendations for you as you begin your work with us. We're happy to have you on our team here at Local State College, and we wish you well. The Teaching and Learning Center is here to support you throughout your time with us. Thank you so much.